Good afternoon, sixth graders. Today we will be learning about Spain's role in the discovery of the New World, specifically the Americas. Miss Kirsten and I will go ahead and get started. We will start off with the Spanish crown. The Spanish exploration would start off with the marriage of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile in 1469, which would unite Catholic Spain. Together, they would set out to continue to unite and conquer peoples under Catholic religion. This would then lead to the Reconquista. The Reconquista was a centuries-long conquest for the Iberian Peninsula and would increase Spain's status as an imperial power. With this increase in power, Spain would conquer lands all across the globe in the name of New Spain. So, in order to govern those new conquered lands, they established viceroys. A viceroy is a title that is given to a person in charge of governing new conquered lands. In 1493, the first viceroy was actually Christopher Columbus. Does anyone know Christopher Columbus? We actually do have a day that is dedicated in his honor. And he was in charge of governing what would now be the Indies. Viceroys would have the authority in matters of justice, government, war, and finance, which is like as if the orders coming from a viceroy would be like coming from the King of Spain himself. In 1535, the title would gain much more influence when it was given to Antonio de Mendoza. He was in charge of New Spain. Spanish viceroys were limited in matters of justice at this time, and this began a new way of how viceroys would be appointed, where each would be given a certain amount of power depending on each kingdom that they conquered. Having this system put in place created a uniformity within each kingdom, where a viceroy would become a title of an office position, whereas it's not just a position of full power that is much like the king's.
The Spanish Caribbean. The first site of interaction between Europeans and American people was in the Caribbean. The most prominent people in the region at the time were the Taino people, otherwise known as the Arawaks. They lived in small villages under the authority of chiefs, cultivating manioc and other crops. The Spanish found no silks or spices and needed to find a way to make a living. They first attempted to mine gold, and they were not inclined to do the work themselves, and instead used the institution of encomienda. This gave the Spanish the right to compel the Taino to work for them, to work in the mines or fields. This was brutal business where the Taino were worked hard and punished severely. Physical abuse and social disruption brought a decline to the Taino population. Smallpox arrived in the Caribbean in 1518, killing off large numbers of Taino populations. This led to the Spanish having raiding parties to replace lost workers, exposing more people to smallpox. The conquest of Mexico. Spanish interests moved to the mainland, hoping to find resources to exploit. Hernan Cortez was in search of gold on the American mainland. He found the Aztec Empire in Mexico. He captured the emperor, but was driven out by Aztec forces. He won by starving the city into surrender. The final emperor was tortured in an attempt to find the whereabouts of Aztec gold and treasures. He was executed in 1525. The conquest of Peru. The Inca Empire had just gone through a bitter dispute between two brothers in the ruling house, and sides had been taken. Pizarro exploited the differences between the factions. In 1533, Pizarro had taken the capital at Cusco. There was a pretext of a conference where all the Inca ruling elites came together. Pizarro and his men then seized them and killed most of them. They spared one brother until they received a large quantity of gold from him. Then they strangled and decapitated him. Many subjects allied with Spanish forces because they despised the Incas as overlords and tax collectors. Iberian empires in the Caribbean. During the days of Cortez and Pizarro, land was allocated to the troops by their own authority. Gradually, the Spanish monarchy extended its control over the American empire. By 1570, the Americas were under formal rule by the Spanish crown. The Spanish established two main centers of authority in the Americas: Mexico, known as New Spain, with its capital now being Mexico City, and Peru, New Castle, with its capital moving from Cuzco to the newly established Lima on the coast, which had better accessibility to Spanish shipping. Each was governed by a viceroy. The formation of multicultural societies. European migrants radically transformed the social order in the regions where they established imperial states or settler colonies. They became multicultural societies where people of varied ancestry lived together under European rule. Most Spanish migrants went to Mexico. In the Spanish colonies, migrants born in Europe were called peninsulares, having come from the Iberian Peninsula. They stood at the top of the social hierarchy. The Creoles were those born in the Americas to Iberian parents. Mestizos came next. They were the offspring of a Spanish and native parent. Mining in the Spanish Empire. For the Spanish, the greatest attraction to the Americas was precious metals. The conquistadors had thoroughly looted the easily accessible treasures of the Aztec and Inca empires. Silver production concentrated on two areas, northern Mexico and the cold central Andes, in the rich mines at Potosi. The mining powered the Spanish economy in the Americas and stimulated the world economy. Christianity and native religions in the Americas. European explorers, conquerors, merchants, and settlers took their religious traditions with them when they traveled overseas. From the beginning, Roman Catholic priests served as representatives to the crown and reinforced civil administrators.
Thank you, Miss Kirsten, for telling us all about those Spanish explorations and all the indigenous peoples that were a part of Spanish exploration. Now we will move on to our activity and your assignment that will be due at the end of the week. So each of you, we will divide the whole class into 6 groups, and each group will be assigned a Spanish explorer. And as a group, you will research your assigned person and create a PowerPoint presentation. And then you will present your PowerPoint as a group. Everyone must speak in order for you to get full credit. The PowerPoint should include a brief summary of the explorer's historical background, places he discovered or traveled to, how and why he became famous or well-known, and 2 to 4 fun facts. We would also like you to be creative with your PowerPoints and include maps, pictures, charts, graphs, whatever, some illustrations, and it must have correct spelling, grammar, punctuation, etc. And if you would like to get some extra credit, you can dress up as an explorer.